Gather round, boys and girls. It's time for another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments by email to dj@artistfirst.com. And now here they are, Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Well, thank you very much. Oh my goodness, it's been an interesting day.
It just got interesting.
Oh, all right. Yours has been mellow all the way through.
Well, boring maybe. But go ahead. You got the con. Go.
Oh. Well, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And this evening we're going to discuss a question that many people have asked of other people.
Well, that you were asked today.
Are you a healer? And that is an interesting statement, or rather question, because frankly, we all have the ability to heal. And the funny part is, the ability really lies within yourself to heal yourself. But we were always looking on the outside for this.
True. Let's back up a little bit. So you were asked this question, sort of randomly out of the blue, by a stranger, which, if you guys have listened to the show for any length of time, you realize that Margaret is accosted by complete strangers all the time. Because there's truly something about your energy which sort of draws these people in. And oftentimes they are people who are in some way seeking healing. And I believe at some level, and I'm not sure if we talked about this, but you and I have talked about this, not on the show, that there's a certain energy which is perceived with the eyes of the heart, and no matter what, when people are looking around, they're experiencing many or most of life, or most of what they think is life, through their ego, through their filters, if you will. But there's always the heart level, and the heart level is there. It's that small, soft voice, right? Which is my voice tonight because it's quite bad. But the small, soft voice is within all of us. And that's what recognizes the energy of, or someone who is open, let's say. So I believe that the reason you get accosted in public spaces throughout the time I've known you by complete strangers who are seeking someone to talk to, someone to help them, someone to hear them, really, more than anything else, is because you have that openness which is perceived at that level. And you're right that all of us can, and really the only way you do heal is through healing yourself. But very often people are blocked from doing that. They block themselves. You yourself block yourself. Dis-ease is often caused, the root cause of a dis-ease is a blockage, sometimes a blockage that you yourself are causing your own illness at a certain level. Not a mental illness, but truly an illness, a truly a disease which manifests itself in the body, but yet may have its root cause in an energy blockage in your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So, all that said, you, on yet another occasion today, were asked this exact question.
Right. And I guess it's interesting to me because I don't try to almost like build a clientele. Maybe that's the best way to put it, because many times healers who do any kind of work, you've got your card, you've got your appointment book, you're ready to begin to set up and talk to people. And I'm not doing any of that.
Mm.
So the fact that people ask this question is intriguing to me, because that's not a question you normally ask of anyone.
True. But yet it's asked of you all the time, in one form or another. Sometimes people don't ask. They just literally come up and turn into a puddle of goo, like right in front of you, usually half in your arms. Because there's a reason for that, though. I really do think that at a root level, they understand something. They understand that they will be heard, and that they can trust you with their pain. They can trust you and be open with you. And in particular, this particular incident was in a casual conversation, but I've seen this many, many times over the years that we owned the Rock and Gem, where a casual conversation turns a corner. It becomes an intimate conversation. And it happens rather abruptly in one way, because people, because of the need, they see something which evokes a heart-level response. And those gates, by that gate I mean the heart gate, when you open it, your pain is right there. It's honestly there to be expressed. And it will commandeer your voice and your face and your whole, it'll all come rushing out. I think everyone's familiar with this. When suddenly you find a soft place, a place where you can be open, your grief or your concern or your anguish or whatever it is rushes out. Why? Because it's been dammed up. It's been pent up. And it's been ignored by the ego and covered up. And, oh, you'll be fine, and just do this and have that and do that. Words. And as we know, as we've discussed before, the triggering can also cause a unconscious emotional and then an ego response, which is driven perhaps by the anguish, but not necessarily actually looking for healing. It's just looking for, it has to explode, somehow get out there. But this is truly the unspoken question. Are you a healer? Or in essence, I need healing, and you've come to me. This is an answer to a call more than it is anything else. And so that question is really, they already know the answer.
Oh dear. Yes. Well, it's one of those things where I believe what happens is my energy functions differently from how most people do things. And I'm not too concerned about putting a face out there or a presentation. It's got to be a certain way. It's what you see is what you get.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So that level, first of all, of directness is something that most people avoid because they don't want to hear what the honest response is. But
Well, that's another question that
Mm.
you also have gotten asked. Is you say, would you like to hear the truth? Usually scares people, but this is a different question. Go ahead. That's the other part of Margaret is sometimes people come to her and they hear what they don't want to hear. But never mind. Moving on.
Well, it ties in with the fact that there is a resonance. There's no dissonance, and you have to make the decision that you will not have dissonance in your life, which means that there's got to be a true face that's presented. And perhaps people don't want to show a true face.
Almost always, yeah. But you need to expand upon that a little bit. The resonance, dissonance. I understand what you mean, but I believe you maybe want to expand upon that a little. Someone comes to you and they're emitting a frequency.
Yes. And depending upon where you happen to be in that moment, how do I say this? You can decide at the start of every day where you want to be throughout the day. You set the tone for the day. Maybe that's the best way to determine. And when you step out of the house, you can actually choose, okay, today is good, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says or does, because I'm choosing this as my base state. It's all good. So when you do that, when you get into situations, there's always that half a second of temptation to, well, why don't you blow up? Someone cut you off on the road. Why don't you get angry? Why don't you chase the person? Why don't you? And it's like, well, we didn't have an accident. We didn't really have an altercation. Someone did something stupid, but I don't have to take it personally, because usually stupidity isn't really personal to you. It's just an expression of what the person is.
Right. Well, but and I believe that's correct. You carry within you a certain expansiveness. If you choose that, it doesn't that doesn't matter. It's sort of a if you started with tone, but I would liken that to, let's say, the song of the day, if you will. Not a song that you hear, but a song that you're, in essence, a frequency that you are holding. And that frequency, again, to use sort of a physical analogy, can have many overtones and undertones and harmonics and lots of things. But if you choose a frequency which is expansive and broad and has the ability to, in essence, enhance the things which resonate at a higher, let's say, or a purer tone, and damp away and bleed away and in essence repel those things which you don't want to resonate with, you hold that. And I agree with you. You start and you hold, and it becomes habitual. But what I mean is people come to you you have this frequency, and they sense it. But they come to you with a particular resonance of their own. And that expansive, let's call it a very broad spaciousness. Thank you.
The spaciousness.
The spaciousness allows their broken harmonics to be enhanced, completed, brought up to a point where they can release their pain and realize that it's being taken and transformed and heard. And then they can also then take that thing back and say, well, okay, it's not just I've heard, my pain's been heard, and now here's your pain back. Your pain has been heard, and it gets eased. It gets understood. It gets processed, let's say.
Well, perhaps the best way to term it is that holding space, a spaciousness in a person's aura, in his surround, is perceivable, which I find fascinating. You know that if you've entered into this spaciousness, it's safe. And it's a subtle thing. I mean, you don't really think about it too much. There's something in you that responds to the spaciousness and the frequency that happens to be in that spaciousness. Two things. It's space and the frequency. So when they enter into it, first of all, there's no fear. I don't carry fear with me. And I don't project it. So when someone is fearful or in coming into the space, it's like, no, that's not where we go. It's very calm. And small children and animals also feel that from me. They just immediately, that's it. Okay, this is a safe space. So then once the easing happens, they realize the space is here and they can let go of whatever it is they're happening to experience in the moment. I feel afraid, and they check back and there's no fear, and it's like, okay, I felt fear, and they let it go. And it's that, I hadn't thought of this before, but you do need that spaciousness in yourself to be able to feel it. Conscious is seeing it and feeling it, and then letting go. And it's automatic, actually. We train ourselves to hang on to our fears.
Exactly.
So, holding space is something that I remember choosing to do because it allowed for the next step to happen, whatever the person's process may be. And I did that a lot with Chris, and I had a lot of children that I spoke with in the pediatric cancer wards. And they were going through their process. And sometimes they couldn't speak to mom or dad because they were fighting a battle and they saw that mom and dad were in overwhelm. So is there someone I can just voice this to? Because they weren't necessarily looking for a solution, but they were looking for that pause, that stillness, to be able to express what it was that was on their heart. And once it was there, the solution or the next step became obvious.
You know, I want to go. I want to stop you there with the spaciousness because I believe this is very important and important to emphasize. What you're providing. Life is a storm, a maelstrom, and oftentimes people are buffeted. They're under pressure. They're being manipulated. So you're being touched, you're being forced, you're being pressured. You have a burden. Okay. Spaciousness is also a relief of that buffeting. It's a shelter. It is a spacious place of peace. It's accepting, but it's also, in some ways, it's a encouraging, because it's saying, take a moment, rest here, rest in this spaciousness, release, realize that the pressure is now gone. It will come back. You have stepped into a momentary, for however long it needs to be, but a momentary respite. But exactly that. You get, as you do with spaciousness, you get to be able to see. You can clearly perceive because the things which are buffeting you and muffling you and manipulating you have been pushed away for the moment. I liken it in some ways to the Rock and Gem because people would come into the Rock and Gem and they would transform in a little way because we didn't allow any darkness to come into the Rock and Gem. So, I'll say this in the easiest way possible. When people would come in with their burdens and their pains and their darkness, that got kind of scraped off at the door. And what we got inside was a truer, freer aspect, something which is really always there, but it is burdened by the ego. It is buffeted by concerns, by the emotional body, by the pain body. So this gets scraped off, and you have the enviable quality of being able to do that, because you carry this spaciousness around with you in any situation. So this spaciousness, they perceive it, they step into a shelter in one regard. But it's a respite. It's like time stops. Your burdens are gone. The skies open up. You can see, here's this thing over here. Maybe you've been thinking it's so horrible. Look how small it is. You can see, this is what's been troubling you, and these things are what is besetting you, and this is where your pain is. You can see it. So you give them a place to step back first. Take a breath. Lay your burdens down. Look at them. These things which you thought were so heavy, they're not so bad. So you get a breather. You open up your pack of troubles and you lay them out in the space, and you say to them, look at these troubles. Have you ever seen something so bad, in essence? And you get an idea of perspective. So this spaciousness is so incredibly important. You said it's preparatory, but it's preparatory on both sides in the sense that you provide it. The healer, let's say, provides a spaciousness. But the important thing, I think, Margaret, is about it is that the person who is in the spaciousness is given the moment of respite to realize that they are far stronger and far less beset than they've been led to believe. It's also a place of truth.
Right. Right. It was realizing that there exists a state outside of what you thought you were. And the person you're talking to or the people that you happen to be with in that moment represent that. Suddenly it's that mirror kind of thing. It's like, wait a minute, this person is mirroring back to me a vastness that I never knew existed. And that knowing, it's that knowing part is the mental part, but it's the consciousness which was always there and has always existed. Suddenly this mirror is shifting your eyes to that broader part of you.
Exactly.
And it's a wonder, usually. It's this look that I don't have to be this way.
Again, what you were led to believe by who? You have been led to believe and beset by thought forms, ego forms, emotional forms. These pieces of you are your burdens, and they use all the mechanisms that they can to mislead, to distract, to daunt, to blind, to keep you running in very short circles.
Right.
And then you reach somebody who's whose expansiveness, whose spaciousness, as you said, mirrors back how vast you are. You're so much greater than this. These are such small things, really, that have been blinding you and trying to keep you from realizing how spacious and great you are. And here's the respite. But then I think where you leave, where this leaves them, or where it leads them, is into realization that their own spaciousness gives them their own ability to see that the current ego form, thought form, emotion form, pain form is just that, a passing, ephemeral, small thing. But it's just to be, this is something which you come to, maybe all at once, maybe over a period of time. But initially, you give them your spaciousness, your perspective as, in essence, a mirror and a resonance of, it's like seeing somebody do something. You say, oh, that's how you do it. And sometimes it's, I've forgotten, or wow, I've been trying to tie my shoes for weeks, and you just make the two loops and put the bunny ears together. Oh, wait a minute. I can tie my shoes. I mean, but it is like that. All of a sudden, you're trying and struggling to balance on the bike, and someone gives you just a little guidance. And all of a sudden, I know how to ride a bike now. Mm-hmm. That's what the spaciousness grants someone. It gives them this huge perspective. And then it says, this is within you. This is you. I am you, in one regard. This is how you do it.
Well, remember what you said to me before, where people will just start crying on top of you.
Puddles of goo, people. It's not pretty.
Okay.
I mean, it just melts. Go ahead, go on.
But it's that part of them that finally has a voice that they can release something to, and the arms that hold you will not run away.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. I'm not afraid of your sorrow, or I'm not afraid of the depth of your pain. I'm not running. I'm standing right here. And I hold space for you to allow it to come through. And that's okay. It doesn't frighten me. It's not going to damage me in any way. But I do understand, truly understand.
That's part of it. People say, oh, how can you be so courageous or so brave?
No.
But there's an element of that, because there is the thought form that somehow this will hurt me, or I can't, or they won't want us. How can I do this? Blah blah blah. And if you've gotten past that, you've reached the end of yourself, reached the end of those thought forms, and realize that we are all the same. We are all expansive, vast consciousnesses. And then you say, in essence, I have to do this for others because I was there. I was beset. I was troubled. And you pass it on, in essence.
Yes, and when you are there, and you really do intimately know the ins and the outs of the struggle. And it's a struggle not only between you and another person, but you and yourself most of the time. You realize that you just need a little help. And it's easy to give when you've seen it and been through it.
Yes, and you can give it. Let's take a little break. We'll go into a little bit of the spaciousness back to the studio, and we'll come back on the other side and we'll talk more about whether or not you're a healer.
is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief, Dev, is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Hello, this is Highway 59 recording artist Randy Moore, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is Book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Amanda Gray. Check out my new book, Glimpses of Grace in Georgia. Available on Westbow Press Bookstore, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon. More information can be found at my website, www.glimpsesofgraceingeorgia.com, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Steve. And tonight we are talking about healers in one regard. And we have spent a little bit of time on this question because, today, just today, and one of many days, this came up. But before we go back into the sort of the direct discussion, we did dig up a quote, which we often do, to throw up on the website. So I was just going to read it, and then we're going to continue on. So, because I think this is germane at this point, a healer, in quotes, is not someone that you go to for healing. A healer is someone that triggers within you your own ability to heal yourself. And the interesting thing here, and we talked about this a little bit, and I couldn't figure a way to put it up on the website, so we're just going to talk about it here, is that the you here is not the little you. It is the big you in one regard. The you is the expansive consciousness you. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes the disease of the mind or the body is really, the root of it is really at the blockages or thought forms or emotion forms or pain body forms which we are carrying around with us. And people say, well, no, you're making yourself sick. You are in many cases you are. One of the root causes of high blood pressure is stress. One of the root causes of many diseases within the body are high levels of cortisols and stress hormones. And the pathways and the effect that the mind has on the mind-body system, and I mean truly the actual physical brain, mind-body system, is all rooted in the energies that you pass through that system. Now, those energies aren't just random electrical impulses. They are thoughts and emotions, which are both, in essence, forms, organized forms of energy, forms of energy that literally course through this physical part of you and have physical effects on the body, on the systems within the body, the nervous systems, the organ systems, the circulatory systems. All of them are intimately tied together. So yeah, of course you could be run over by a bus. It doesn't have a lot to do with your stress. Maybe you were just stressed out and you got run over by a bus. But a lot of what we call diseases are really rooted in the way you allow energy forms to block consciousness.
Yes. Well, if you look at it in terms of your chakra systems and the chi flows, life force flows through your body, if you block any part of it, it causes turbulence or trouble in the flow within the body. So, and it manifests itself outside in your situations because your frequency that you're holding is the one that you pretty much call to yourself.
Yes. And you can make anything worse by the way you think about it, just as you can do the opposite. You make it better by the way you think. But oftentimes, the anticipation of trouble, or the walking the floor with worry about a situation, is far worse than the actual reality. What happens? You can drive yourself truly crazy with worry, with fear, with anxiety. You can drive yourself into all kinds of terrible states by dwelling on the past, by past grievances, by past hurts, by anything that has happened to you that you then live in and recall, bring into the present moment. The expansiveness, what we get back to what you were providing for these folks, was this momentary respite, just to say, in so many words, it's okay. All those things are small, some past, some are fictional, future things. They're all not you. They want to tell you that this is so important. You must spend all your time on this. You must worry about the future and obsess about the past. All the different forms. Drive your body into terrible states of stress or terrible states of pressure and disease. But you give the expansiveness, and they realize a healer is someone that triggers within you the greater, vaster, really your own ability, the consciousness's ability to heal itself, yourself.
It has to do with the letting go.
Mm.
Many times, something simple as there's an emotion that rises within you, and you express it, but then the mind comes in or the ego comes in and qualifies what you're feeling in that moment. But it's this, oh, it's that, oh, but maybe, I'm feeling, oh, that made me feel sad, oh, but it's
okay.
And the truth of the matter is to train yourself not to comment on what just came up in you. And that is a very difficult thing. That's a true discipline. Suddenly you're feeling, oh, I feel sad. And not to really expand on it, because that's what the ego will do. It'll take it, well, you're sad because of this, and blah, 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 on and on and on. It's like, no. You're feeling sad right now. Walk through it. Let it flow through you. And then let it go. And once you've done that whole process of where it rises, you feel it flows through you, and then you let it go. Afterwards, you can analyze it. But it doesn't need to be analyzed right in the moment. Maybe that's the best way to term it. You give your mind or your mental part, that ego, the task of analysis afterwards. And then that is the useful part. That's when it's not interfering with the flow that happens. And life flows. If you can begin to discipline yourself into not analyzing things as they happen to you, you'll find that it straightens out many knots that have been created within your system. Because the freedom to allow what is to flow right now is a truly blessed thing.
And again, the expansiveness that a healer gives you, that you give someone, allows them to feel what that feels like, to allow all these things that were bothering you to expand into a great space and flow outward. And here's something interesting about the mechanism. I'll comment as an observer. People will do this. You'll give them the expansiveness, and they'll open these floodgates of something. Some trouble will come flooding out of them. and oftentimes emotion, tears, and all these things. And then you see them going, oh, but I shouldn't be doing this to this complete stranger. And they try to pull back, and they're like, and that's the ego trying to reassert itself and saying, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing this and this, and if you give them enough space, even the ego voice gets quelled. Tolle, we always love Tolle, but Tolle says, when the expansiveness comes on, at that moment, there's a moment when the ego just shuts up, because it's so great, it's so vast, that there's suddenly it doesn't have a word or a analysis to stick on it. It just goes, oh, and in that moment, it's really now. The expansiveness is so great. So you give this expansiveness, and these floodgates of trouble and emotion and pain come out. And even the ego, which tries immediately to say, you shouldn't be, it's taken into a space so vast that even the ego shuts up for a moment. And the true consciousness resounds and responds to the other and sees itself mirrored and realizes that, in this moment, all my troubles, pains, and even the ego are expanding into a space so vast that they can't fill it with the nonsense. They can't bind, all the bindings kind of loose and flow away. And you can see the emotion for what it is. It's a giant wave, and it just crests and flattens and flows and it's gone. You can see the ego for what it is. All these little spinny things that are just trying to keep you all busy, and think. And that gives the consciousness a moment, perhaps a literal example of itself.
It sees. It sees maybe for the first time in a long time that's my natural state. Wait a minute, I know that.
And I believe you recognize it because that's where before it all got spun up, like, hey, it's like sitting on the beach with a pile of sand and digging in the sand and listening to the ocean and not thinking about anything, or worrying about anything. You just want to stay there in your puddle of goo.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you can say, yes, there's a useful thing over here that can think about this and say, yes, that happened, and that was good, and we should remember that. And there was the emotions, the things that were bothering us. Yes, they're smaller now, but yes, they're important too. And you get this idea that, yes, I'm a vast being with many aspects and many forms, all contained. And you're able to heal. You're able to say, well, this broken piece here needs this, and this needs to be put back together, and this needs to be allowed to flow away and be remembered but not kept, in a container, in a jar by the door. That's what the expansiveness, I think, it's really the thing that people need, is a respite.
Well, the other question is, now that we're thinking of spaciousness, what is spaciousness?
And what are we talking about here when you say spaciousness?
Mm-hmm. And speaking for myself, just looking at this, the spaciousness is a heart big enough to encompass the world. It is allowing the heart expression to be there, and when it opens, that divine heart aspect expands and makes room for everything. that is you. So to be able to accept that heart state of trueness, of understanding that it's way beyond anything that I can mentally understand or grasp with mental fingers, but accept the fact that this exists, and to allow yourself to be filled with that divine grace. I don't know how else to explain it. Because doing that, I can't do that with my own personal ego. My own personal ego will basically look at somebody and want to say, you gotta get your act together.
Get your act together. Jeez, man, stop crying on me.
No. But when one resides in the heart space, the expansiveness fills the room, fills the space you happen to be in. And the love comes through. It's a divine love that loves even the unlovable. And it's not me, but it's coming through me. And that's what I call is the divine heart.
And I would say that it is you, but it is the greater you. And I believe the true echo or the true resonance is that the one who comes with the troubles and the one who receives the troubles with expansiveness and spaciousness, the realization is that we're both emanations of Source. Yes, we're both individuals, we're both unique souls, both unique emanations, unique spirits, yet the same besieging of ego and emotion can happen to any one of us. And then when you realize that the expansiveness is always there for you and for me, and that you open that, call it a door, call it a connection to Source, call it whatever you wish. The divine love is a perfect example.
I always call it the unconditional love of God.
Yeah.
That allows you to sacrifice what is human and reach for what is divine, just as Jesus did in his life.
True. All true. All I'm saying is that's what gives people the realization that they hold the same thing, that they can heal, and you don't heal them. The key here, again, a healer is not someone that you go to for healing. A doctor is someone you go to be doctored. Because a doctor is going to cut something or give you a pill or whatever. Great. Go to a doctor. But when you wish to be healed and wish to realize that your ego forms and your emotion forms and the things which are blocking you are aspects of you which you have given this power to do to you, and that the true vast consciousness of who you actually are, if you can find that echo in another, the other gives you that example. Where did the original example come? Maybe from Christ, maybe from Buddha, maybe from someone who originally connected, however far back, and it gets passed one to another. And Tole said this the other day, and I believe it too, and you have as well. We're at an inflection point, people. We're truly reaching a point where enough of this has gone on that you are now finding it more often than not, that you find an expansiveness, a consciousness when you touch into another. And they're hiding it perhaps because they're not necessarily sure that everyone is at that point. But then you see that more and more. There will be an inflection point. It will be, perhaps it's happening now. Perhaps it'll happen now or now. At some point where we're going to transition, where consciousness will become manifest, and the things that we call life will fall away into where they should be. It's an interesting time of the world to be alive in, and be aware in, to understand that each individual emanations, all of us, are on the cusp of a transition point.
What if I was asked to look at what's going on right now? I would say that the culture or the people, there is an identity for every nation and groups of people. And what it feels like to me is that the groups, each individual group, whether a nation or a people, have come to a point of saying, I've had enough. I've had enough. And they've basically pushed aside the habitual, almost egoic aspects of their own particular culture, and they are open right now. Because when you've had enough of you,
exactly,
you are open to what is out there. And what is out there right now only needs permission to come on in. There is an aspect of divine consciousness, the connection, the interconnection of the divine flame from one to another that is being ignited right now. Yeah. That's what I'm seeing. And it's a beautiful thing because people are pretty much fed up with themselves and everything around them.
and by that, by fed up with yourself, you're fed up with the thought forms, the ego forms, the emotion forms, and the consciousness resonance which one has been giving to another, sort of, let's say, quietly, is becoming pervasive. It's not loud, but it's becoming...
It's inexorable.
Inexorable. That's probably a good way of putting it. And if that sounds ominous, it's not. It's really just it's like anything else. When the seed, it's time to open the shell, and for the plant, the young plant to emerge, it happens. This is where we're at. The shell is cracking. It's an important time to be in the world. And
the decision at this point is, are you the shell that is being broken apart, or are you the seed of life that's within it? Will you root and grow into your next stage, or are you going to reside only as that seed?
I think we're all a little bit of both, actually. But you know what we are? We are also out of time. So we're going to break through the shell of the end of the hour and say, I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.